Okay, another program that it seems environmentalists can support is the elimination of invasive species in the wild. We know that species of plants and animals and insects that are not native to a local habitat or ecosystem has pretty disastrous consequences for that habitat or ecosystem. So we can talk about Japanese beetles. We can talk about stink bugs. We can talk about Asian carp. We can talk about certain kinds of marsh grasses, which grow so tall and they, kill all the other kinds of grasses. Environmentally speaking, we do go in and we try our best to eliminate these invasive species from these populations. Again, not just with non-human animals, but also with insects and plant life. Now, but if you're an animal liberationist, and again an egalitarian once again. So take the Asian carp. The lives of those individual carp, morally speaking, matter just as much as the lives of the native fish to the Great Lakes. So, on what grounds, if my main concern is with preventing suffering of animals and promoting the well being of animals, on what grounds would I go in and eliminate all the Asian carp? It does seem that I have to weigh the interests that the Asian or whatever interests the Asian carp have for being in the Great Lakes with whatever interests the native fish populations have here. Um, Now, an animal liberationist obviously would not necessarily be concerned with plant life and insect life, but an environmentalist would, clearly. All right, and then the last program that it seems that an environmentalist can support is just with letting nature be nature, not always intervening in nature to prevent the suffering of non human animals or to promote the welfare of non human animals. Now, clearly, an environmentalist is not going to say we should never intervene in nature. It seems clear that there are situations where we should. Um, it seems when we should intervene in nature is when certain natural harms result from our activities, our industry and our agriculture. So, for example, if I put a swimming pool in my backyard and I wake up one morning and there is a baby raccoon drowning in my pool, it does seem that I'm obligated to intervene on the raccoon's behalf. Why? It's my fault that the raccoon is in this precarious position. Were it not for the fact that I put a swimming pool in my backyard, that raccoon would not be drowning. So I do have an obligation to prevent its suffering and to promote its welfare. However, if I am hiking and I find a fox eating a baby rabbit, or chasing a baby rabbit and finally capturing it, um, why should I scare the fox away for the sake of the rabbit? So I might have a certain sentimental attachment to the baby rabbit. Why? Because I find it cute and cuddly. But clearly, my sentimental attachments aren't necessarily what determine what I'm morally obligated to do. And by intervening, by shooing the fox away or chasing it or making loud noises and allowing the rabbit to escape, sure, I'd be promoting the welfare of the rabbit, but wouldn't I be failing to promote the welfare of the fox? Wouldn't I be depriving the fox of its meal, which it needs to survive? Maybe the fox is a mother fox and it's going to feed that baby rabbit to its offspring. I mean, these are the kinds of things that happen in nature every single day. And it does seem that it would be wrong to prevent these kinds of things from happening, right? Now, and this is where Mark Sagoff makes his final point. Sagoff argues that to the extent the animal liberationist is primarily concerned with preventing the suffering of non human animals, and again, he says they can't only be concerned with preventing the suffering of domesticated animals or promoting the welfare of domesticated animals. If our main concern is with preventing suffering, respecting animal rights, and promoting animal welfare, Sagoff argues that animal liberationists should not be radically anti domestication, as they tend to be. They should be radically pro domestication. Why? Animals suffer a lot less when they're domesticated. Given the fact that nature contains predation and disease and starvation just naturally, independently of human activities, I mean, nature, it's hard. It's scary out there. I mean, my cat is an indoor cat, and if I tried to let her be an outdoor cat, she would not make it a day. My cat is much better off being domesticated than just being allowed to be free in nature. And I don't even have a lot of land, but I have a big enough parcel of land that there are coyotes and things like that that roam around the backyard. If I left my cat outside for a day, she would not be coming back. So Sagoff talks about the fact that, well, maybe what the animal liberationists should say we ought to do is just build a lot of barns, domesticate all the wild animals, separate them so that they can't eat each other, vaccinate them, spay and neuter them, and then maybe switch them all to vegetarian diets, just get rid of all their natural instincts. That would be a great step towards ending animal suffering. We could radically end animal suffering and promote animal welfare by domesticating all the wild animals. But doesn't it seem that this would be wrong? It does seem that it would be wrong to go in and completely eliminate nature, to completely eliminate wild, untamed spaces. So we ought to just let nature be nature. Now, but even animal liberationists tend to already agree with this. Even animal liberationists will say, oh, yeah, of course we should let animals be wild and free. But by letting animals be wild and free, we are allowing animals to suffer to a much greater extent than we would be if we were domesticating all of those animals. So Sagoff's point is the animal liberationists really can't have their cake and eat it too here. If animal liberationism is primarily concerned with preventing the suffering of non-human animals and with promoting animal welfare, then animal liberationists ought to be pro-domestication. But a anti-domestication perspective saying let's just let nature be nature, let's not intervene in cases of predation, let's not intervene in a natural habitat in this kind of way or a natural ecosystem in this kind of way, that's more consistent with environmentalism than it is with animal liberationism. Now, and since an environmental ethic can't only be concerned with animal welfare, it also needs to be concerned with land and ecosystem and habitat and plant life and insect life. That is why an animal liberation perspective, or even an animal rights or animal welfare perspective, can't ground an environmental ethic. Our environmental ethic needs to move beyond just concern with animal welfare, animal rights, or animal liberation only. So, again, if Sagoff is right about this, then the goals of both, the characteristic goals of animal liberationism and environmentalism, are at odds with each other. So, you can either be one or the other, but you can't be both. So, I leave it to you to determine which one you identify more with. Do you think we should intervene on the baby rabbit's behalf and scare the fox away, or would you be willing to stand back and say, no, this is just nature? Do you think we should be allowed to hunt to curb populations? Do you think we should be eliminating invasive species for the sake of natural habitats and ecosystems? If your answer to those kinds of questions is yes, then you seem to identify more with an environmentalist perspective rather than an animal liberationist perspective. All right. Okay. I've had to do this in 2 videos just because I have a 15-minute uh, time limit with the recording program that I'm using. But I hope you enjoyed it.